Hello students, this is chapter 3.3. So in the previous presentation, I have covered the peripheral nervous system. Yes, so here in this presentation, I will cover the central nervous system, under which the structure of the brain, spinal cord, reflex action, and the endocrine system. In the previous presentation, I have discussed about the brain and behavior, and I have also mentioned about the psychology of the human brain. So here let us see the structure of the human brain. So the human brain can be divided into three parts: the hindbrain, midbrain, and forebrain. You can see in the diagram that it has been divided into these three parts, where hindbrain is further divided into the following structures, where we have medulla oblongata. Now if you look in the diagram, you will see that medulla oblongata is the lowest part of the brain that exists in continuation of the spinal cord. So it contains neural centers which regulate the basic life supporting activities. And which are the basic life supporting activities? These are the activities like breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. And this is why medulla is known as the vital center. That means one of the most important center of the brain, along with other autonomic activities. Next is pons. Pons is connected with medulla on one side and with the midbrain on the other side. So it is in between the medulla on one side and the midbrain on the other side. Okay, so a nucleus of pons receives auditory signals relayed by our ears. Auditory signals means sounds from outer surfaces that goes in as signal, and it is being received in the brain. Okay, so it is believed that pons is involved in sleep mechanism also, particularly the sleep characterized by dreaming. It contains nuclei affecting respiratory movement and facial expressions also. And the third is the cerebellum under the hindbrain. Okay, so this is the highly developed part of the hindbrain which can easily be recognized by its wrinkled surface. Now look over here in the diagram as well. Under the hindbrain, the cerebellum is indicated as the green square. So you can see that the cerebellum is having a wrinkled surface, which makes it very easy to recognize it. It maintains and controls posture and equilibrium of the body. This is one of the main function of cerebellum. Okay, and another main function is coordination of muscular movements. And it also stores memory of movement patterns so that we do not have to concentrate on how to walk, dance, or ride a bicycle. So the next part of the human brain is the midbrain. The midbrain is relatively small in size and it connects the hindbrain with the forebrain. So you can see in the diagram where it is being placed. It lies in the middle, which connects this hindbrain with the forebrain. That is why it got its name as the midbrain. So an important part of the midbrain is located in the lower part, which is known as the reticular activating system. In short, it is known as the RAS, which is responsible for our arousal. Now, what is arousal? Arousal is something that makes us alert and active by regulating sensory inputs. Alright, and this midbrain also helps us in selecting information from the environment. Now this RAS or the RA system, it is also responsible for waking us up from our sleep. So once we sleep and then when we need to wake up, so that waking part, the arousal, is being activated by the RA system. The third part of the human brain is the forebrain. and it is considered to be the most important part of the brain because it performs all cognitive, emotional, and motor activities. And under forebrain, there are four major parts of it. The first one is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, it is one of the smallest structures in the brain, but it plays a very important role in our behavior because it regulates physiological processes involved in emotional and motivational behavior such as eating, drinking, sleeping, temperature regulation, and sexual arousal. And it also regulates and controls heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, and regulates the secretion of hormones from various endocrine glands. That is why the hypothalamus is regarded to be the most important part in predicting the behavior. Okay, though it is small in structure, but it has a very important role. It plays a very vital role in our behavior. Now the second part of the forebrain is the thalamus. Thalamus, it consists of an egg-shaped cluster of neurons which is situated on the ventral, that means the upper side of the hypothalamus. You can see in the diagram where is the position of the thalamus, and also we will notice that its shape is like that of an egg shape. Alright. So this thalamus is like a relay station that receives all incoming sensory signals from sense organs and sends them to appropriate parts of the cortex for processing. On the other hand, it also receives all outgoing motor signals coming from the cortex and sends them to appropriate parts of the body. It is also functions as regulation of sleep, consciousness, and alertness. So this thalamus, always remember, it is the relay station where from one side all the incoming sensory signal are being received from the sense organs and it sends them to the appropriate parts of the cortex. It processes. After processing, it again moves out from the cortex and it goes through the motor signals, and then it sends them to appropriate parts of the body. So one side it is incoming and another side it is outgoing. Alright. Third is limbic system. Now this system is composed of a group of structures that form part of the mammalian brain. So it helps in maintaining internal homeostasis. When we say internal homeostasis, that means it is regularizing and it is keeping a balance inside our body system by regulating body temperature, blood pressure, and blood sugar level. Okay, and the limbic system comprises of hippocampus, which plays an important role in long-term memory, and amygdala, which plays an important role in emotional behavior. So the hippocampus, it is responsible for keeping one's memory in the long term. Okay, otherwise we will not be able to keep in our memory and we will not be able to retrieve whatever is there in our memory if the hippocampus is being damaged. Likewise, the amygdala, it plays an important role in emotional behavior. So all the emotions of a human being, it is being regulated by the amygdala. So limbic system, it plays a very important role over there. The fourth part is the cerebrum, which is also known as the cerebral cortex. So it regulates all higher levels of cognitive functions such as attention, perception, learning, etc. So the cerebrum makes 2/3 of the total mass of the human brain, and its thickness varies from 1.5 millimeter to 4 millimeter, which covers the entire neural sets and bundles of axons. Alright. Now all this make it possible for us to perform organized actions and create images, symbols, associations and memories. Further, the cerebrum is divided into two symmetrical halves, which is called as the cerebral hemispheres. Both of them appear identical. However, functionally, one hemisphere dominates the other. Okay. Now the two hemispheres are connected by a white bundle of myelin sheath or myelinated fibers, which are called as corpus callosum, that carries messages back and forth between the hemispheres. So for example, the left hemisphere usually controls language behavior, and the right hemisphere is usually specialized to deal with images, spatial relationships and pattern recognition. Now here in the diagrams you can see that the parts are in different colors, and here you can see left hemisphere, right hemisphere. You can also see on the diagram below left corner there is the cerebrum and corpus callosum, cerebellum, medulla and pons being marked over there. Now the cerebral cortex has been divided into four lobes. Now these four lobes you can see in the diagram with different colors it is being indicated. The frontal lobe, which is in purple color, the parietal lobe in green color, dark blue color you can see occipital lobe, and in light blue color there is this temporal lobe. Now let's go through this four lobes one by one in details. Now the frontal lobe is mainly concerned with cognitive functions such as attention, thinking, memory, reasoning and learning. So whatever be the cognitive functions, you all know everything is being regulated by the frontal lobe. It is being exercised by the frontal lobe, and it also exerts inhibitory effects on autonomic and emotional responses. And by inhibitory effect, we mean that it is an effect that suppresses or restrains an impulse, a desire, or a behavior that processes either consciously or unconsciously. Okay, so basically, it exerts pressure on suppressing one's desire or behavior. Okay, next, the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is mainly concerned with cutaneous sensation and their coordination with visual and auditory sensations. Okay, now what do you mean by cutaneous sensations? Cutaneous sensations are mostly related with the sensations of the skin, okay, affecting the skin or which is related to skin. That is the cutaneous sensation. Next is the temporal lobe, which is primarily concerned with the processing of auditory information. So memory for symbolic sounds and words reside here in the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe plays an important function in understanding of speech and written languages. Fourth is the occipital lobe, which is mainly concerned with visual information, and it is believed that interpretation of visual impulses, memory for visual stimuli and color visual orientation is performed by this lobe. So you can see that how these four lobes are very important in working out as a whole. So far you come to know that frontal lobe, it is mainly concerned with the cognitive functions, thinking, memory, reasoning, learning. Parietal lobe, it is the cutaneous sensations or coordination with visual and auditory sensations. So basically remember it is the movement. Okay. Then temporal lobe, which is concerned with the processing of auditory information. That means we hear because of the help of the temporal lobe. We understand speech and written languages because of the temporal lobe. Then the occipital lobe, it is concerned with the visual information. We see, we understand, we memorize the visual stimuli because of the occipital lobe. Very importantly, it has been found that no activity of the brain is performed only by a single part of the cortex. Other parts of the cortex are also involved, but it is also correct that for a particular function, a particular part of the cortex plays a more important role than the other parts. Now, as you know that there are these four lobes which plays different roles, and it also works in their own specific ways. So in some way, maybe only one lobe might be working, while for other working, only the other lobe is working. Maybe for visual, we are using only the occipital lobe. For hearing, we are using the temporal lobe. But it is also possible, and it is actually possible that might all the four lobes working together. For example, now say if a person is driving a car, the person see the road and other vehicles by the function of the occipital lobe, hear the horns by the function of the temporal lobe, and do many motor activities controlled by parietal lobe, and make decisions by the help of frontal lobe. So this is one example where you can see that all the lobes are perfectly working in their own way at the different times which is required when a person is driving a car. Yes or no? Think about it. So the whole brain acts as a well coordinated unit in which different parts contribute their functions separately. Next we have spinal cord. I hope you all know about the spinal cord. Yes. So here the structure of spinal cord is a roughly cylindrical structure, we can say, which contains a bulge in its lower middle region and gradually tapering to a point in the lower back region. And it is a long rope-like collection of nerve fibers which run along the full length inside the spine. Its one end is connected with the medulla of the brain and the other is free at the tail end. You can see in the diagram very nicely, it is shown over here. And the internal structure of the spinal cord is much simpler and more uniform throughout its various parts than the various parts of the brain. The butterfly-shaped mass of gray matter present in the center of the spinal cord contains association of neurons and other cells. And surrounding the gray matter is the white matter of the spinal cord, which is composed of the ascending and descending neural tracts. I hope you all have heard about the gray matter. Yes. So where do we find the gray matter? We find the gray matter in the spinal cord. Many times we hear that there is gray matter in the brain, but actually the gray matter, it is found in the spinal cord. And there is also this white matter. Okay, which is surrounded, which the white matter surrounds the gray matter. Okay, so what is the function of spinal cord? Do you know the function of spinal cord? The spinal cord carries sensory impulses coming from the body to the brain and motor impulses originating from the brain to all over the body, and it controls the reflex actions directly and independently and enables the quick reactions in the emergency situations. Now most importantly, everyone of us know that spinal cord helps in maintaining balance and various postures. Yes, so apart from that, maintaining balance and various postures, it also helps in functioning in carrying out sensory impulses coming from the body to the brain and motor impulses originating from the brain to all over the body is being carried out through the spinal cord. Next, let us understand about the reflex action. You all have heard about a reflex action. So a reflex action is nothing but an involuntary action that occurs very quickly after a specific kind of stimulation. So the reflex action takes place automatically without conscious decision of the brain, and it is inherited in our nervous system through evolutionary processes. So when we say evolutionary processes, what do you mean by evolutionary processes? By evolutionary process, we mean that blinking of eye, and whenever any object suddenly comes near our eyes, what we do? Our eyelids automatically blinks. Yes or no? So this eye blinking reflex is the evolutionary process. It has been passed on from generation to generation. Everyone is doing the same thing. Same reflex. If something is hurled near our eyes, of course our eyelids blink. Now here you can see in the diagram how the reflex action acts. Now there is a hot object and direction of impulses you can see. If you touch it, automatically it jerks. Okay. Same thing over here also. Receptors as a hot or heat pan receptors in skin. Same. This is reflex arc. Another one is there. Knee jerk is there. This is very common. All the other reflexes are also common. We can see here also reflex hammer, patellar tendon in something. If a hammer is being tapped on your knees, automatically there is knee jerk, there is reflex, you can feel it. So this reflex action serves to protect the organism from potential threats and preserve life. That is the only function of the reflex action that we are being used to. We do show quick actions after a specific kind of stimulation, and this reflex action actually takes place automatically without conscious decision of the brain. In order to go to the brain and then getting the message what to do, what not to do, the brain doesn't have so much time for certain things. So in that case, this reflex action, it automatically take its place, and its action is very automatic. Okay. Next we have the endocrine system, where basically the endocrine glands plays an important role, also a very crucial role in our development and behavior. So they secrete specific chemical substances which are called as hormones. Hormones are nothing but certain kind of chemical substances which control some of our behaviors. And these glands are called ductless glands because they do not have any duct to send their secretions to specific places. That means they don't have any kind of tube or something, mm, a hollow space in order to secrete to specific places. Okay, that is why it is known as the ductless glands. So the endocrine glands form the endocrine system, which works in conjunction with different parts of the nervous system, and the whole system is therefore known as the neuroendocrine system. Alright, so this part we will discuss in the next presentation. Okay, so with this I wind up today's presentation. So we have gone through brain and behavior, the structure of brain, spinal cord and reflex action, and a little bit I have started with the endocrine system, which I will explain in the next presentation. So you all please go through the slides and try to understand, and if you find any problem understanding any part, please do ask. Thank you.